Because when you stand in front of that mirror, you lose the ability to blame anyone else. You can't point at your parents, your boss, your past, or your environment. You can't hide behind bad luck or fake motivation. The mirror strips you of every excuse you've ever used to justify why you're not where you should be. It's just you, raw, unfiltered truth. And that's why most people avoid it. It's easier to point outward than to look inward. It's easier to talk about what others did wrong than to ask yourself what you could have done better. But the ones who rise, the real leaders, they choose the harder path. They take that mirror and use it as a weapon. They use it to destroy their own weakness before life does. Leadership isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. And you can't master yourself without reflection. When you look in that mirror every morning, you should be asking, am I proud of the person I see? Am I doing everything I said I would do? Am I living up to the standard I claim to represent? Because if the answer is no, then the work begins right there. Accountability doesn't happen in public, it happens in private. It's the 5 a.m. moments when you have no audience. It's when you're dead tired, but you still keep your promise to yourself because that reflection deserves your best, not your excuses. That's leadership. It's not about talking. It's about living. When real leaders fail, they don't look for someone to blame. They look in the mirror and say, what did I miss? What can I fix? That mindset separates the average from the unstoppable. Most people want to escape responsibility because it hurts. Accountability hurts. Yeah. It exposes how undisciplined you've been, how many shortcuts you've taken, how often you've betrayed your own potential. But that's exactly why it's powerful. Every time you confront that pain, you grow stronger. Every time you take responsibility instead of making excuses, you reclaim power over your life. The moment you stop saying, they did this to me, and start saying, allow this to happen, that's the moment you become a leader. The truth is, life will test you. It will throw challenges that make you question your strength, your purpose, your worth. But if you've built the habit of reflection, if you've trained yourself to look in the mirror and tell the truth, you'll never be shaken because you'll know exactly where you stand. You'll know your weaknesses and you'll be working on them. You'll know your strengths and you'll be sharpening them. You won't need validation or applause because your reflection is your accountability partner. You'll wake up every day knowing that the only person you need to impress is the one staring back at you. That's the kind of inner power that makes real leaders untouchable. There's something deeply transformative about the mirror. It humbles you, but it also empowers you. When you realize that every result in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, is a reflection of your decisions, it gives you control. Because if your choices created your current reality, your next choices can create a different one. Accountability gives you that freedom. You stop being a victim and start being the author of your own story. You start asking better questions. What can I change today? How can I improve tomorrow? Instead of blaming, you build. Instead of complaining, you create. But here's the hardest part. Accountability doesn't care about how you feel. You can't negotiate with truth. The mirror doesn't accept excuses. You either did the work or you didn't. You either kept your word or you broke it. That's why accountability is uncomfortable, because it forces you to face the gap between who you say you are and who you really are. Most people can't handle that confrontation, so they avoid it. They scroll, they distract, they lie to themselves just enough to feel okay about staying the same. Not leaders. Leaders embrace that confrontation because they know discomfort is the birthplace of growth. When you look in the mirror and say, I'm not there yet, but I will be, something powerful happens inside you. You stop hiding behind perfection and start pursuing progress. Accountability doesn't mean being flawless. It means being honest enough to fix what's broken. Every time you take ownership, you level up. Every time you admit your own role in your failures, you get wiser, sharper, strong. You learn that the person in the mirror is not your enemy. That's your teammate. That's the version of you that's trying to pull you toward your potential. They're not made by titles, followers, or achievements. They're made by reflection, by ownership, by a relentless commitment to accountability. When they look in the mirror, they don't just see a person. They see a standard. They see someone who's carrying a mission, a responsibility bigger than their feelings. And because of that, they lead with integrity. They inspire not through words, but through example. People trust them because they live what they preach. The mirror's a test. It asks you every day, are you giving your best? Are you becoming the person you promised yourself you'd be? And the answer isn't spoken. It's live. You truly want to lead. If you truly want to make an impact, then stop waiting for someone else to hold you accountable. Be the one who checks yourself. Be the one who takes responsibility for everything in your life. Because when you do that, no one can control you. You become unstoppable. That's what real leadership looks like. Not perfection, not power, but ownership. The willingness to say, it starts with me. It ends with me. Whatever happens next, I'm responsible. And when you live like that, the mirror becomes your greatest ally. It won't always show you what you want to see, but it will always show you what you need to see. And that's where transformation begins. Accountability starts with reflection, and reflection is where the leader in you is born. 2. Self-awareness builds unshakable strength. It's the invisible foundation that separates real leaders from everyone else pretending to lead. When you truly understand who you are, you stop being shaken by the opinions, judgments, or failures that break other people. You stop chasing validation because you already know your worth. You stop pretending to be someone you're not because you finally realize that authenticity is power. But here's the truth. Self-awareness doesn't come easy. It's not a quote you post. It's a battle you fight within yourself every single day. It means facing the truth about your character, your weaknesses, your patterns, and your fears. It's about standing in front of the mirror and seeing not just the surface, but the reality of what's inside. Most people spend their lives running from themselves. They drown their silence with distractions, cover their insecurities with ego, and hide behind masks because they're terrified of what they might find if they actually looked within. But that's exactly why they stay stuck. You can't fix what you won't face. You can't lead others when you don't even understand what's going on inside your own mind. Real leaders have the courage to confront that inner chaos. They ask themselves the hard questions. Why did I react that way? Why do I keep repeating this pattern? What am I really afraid of? And they don't lie to themselves when the answers hurt, because they know truth hurts before it heals. Self-awareness is like building a mental compass. It keeps you grounded when life tries to throw you off course. When you know who you are, you don't get lost in comparison. You don't envy other people's success because you're too focused on your own path. When you finally stop lying to yourself, when you finally confront the parts of you that are lazy, afraid, inconsistent, or undisciplined, that sting of honesty becomes your wake-up call. That's where growth begins, not in comfort, but in confrontation. The people who grow the fastest in life are the ones who tell themselves the hardest truths. They look at their lives and ask, what am I doing wrong? What patterns am I repeating? What behaviors are holding me back? They don't play the blame game because they know that as long as they're blaming others, they're giving away their power. Growth belongs to those who take responsibility for everything. The failures, the weaknesses, the missed opportunities, and use them as lessons, not excuses. Brutal honesty also means accepting that your old self must die for your new self to live. You can't hold on to the habits that broke you and expect to become stronger. You can't keep surrounding yourself with people who feed your weakness and expect to grow. Wow! You can't talk about wanting change while still living like the person you used to be. Growth requires sacrifice, and that sacrifice starts with truth. You've got to be honest about what's no longer serving you, the behaviors, the relationships, the beliefs that keep you small. Because if you don't cut them off, they'll suffocate your potential. Leaders who grow continuously are not the ones who have all the answers. They're the ones who keep asking hard questions. They don't let success make them blind, and they don't let failure make them bitter. They stay brutally honest with themselves at all times. When they win, they analyze what worked and what did. When they lose, they don't soak. They study. They reflect with humility, not pride. That's how they keep evolving. Honesty keeps them sharp. It keeps them grounded. It keeps them aware of where they need to improve. Most people fear being brutally honest with themselves because they confuse honesty with self-hate. But they're not the same. Brutal honesty isn't about tearing yourself down. It's about confronting the parts of you that are keeping you from rising. It's an act of self-respect. When you tell yourself the truth, you're saying, I believe I can be better, and I'm not going to let my own lies hold me back anymore. it's not weakness. It's the highest form of strength because it takes real courage to admit you've been the problem. Growth through honesty is messy. It doesn't happen in a straight line. There will be days when you don't like what you see in yourself. Days when you realize how far you've fallen short, how inconsistent you've been, how many opportunities you've wasted. But that's part of the process. Course of the process. Every time you confront those moments with honesty instead of shame, you gain clarity. You stop hiding from your reality and start shaping it. The truth becomes a tool, not a threat. And little by little, you grow into the kind of person who doesn't need to lie anymore because your actions finally match your words. Brutal honesty also kills ego, and ego is the biggest enemy of growth. Ego wants to be right. Ego wants to look strong. Ego wants to protect your image even when your reality is collapsing. But honesty doesn't care about image. It cares about improvement. When you drop the ego and say, I don't know everything, I've made mistakes, I need to get better, you open yourself up to growth that pride could never give you. Every great leader you admire has had moments of brutal self-reflection. They've had to swallow their pride, admit when they were wrong, and start again from the bottom. That humility is what made them unstoppable. The truth about growth is that it demands pain. You have to look at your flaws until you understand them. You have to sit in the discomfort of your failures until they teach you something. You have to face your fears instead of running from them. That's why most people plateau, because they want comfort more than change. But the ones who rise, the ones who evolve, they're the ones who choose truth every single day, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Brutal honesty also changes how you deal with people. When you're honest with yourself, you stop pretending with others. You start surrounding yourself with people who challenge you instead of comforting your mediocrity. You start respecting those who tell you the truth, even when it stings, because you understand that real growth only happens in the presence of honesty. You stop being defensive when people call you out, because you've already been calling yourself out privately. You stop living to protect your reputation and start living to protect your evolution. There's a moment in every person's life where the mirror asks, are you ready to be real yet? That's the moment that separates those who talk about change from those who actually change. You can't cheat the process. You can't fake growth. You can post quotes, talk about discipline, act confident, but if you're lying to yourself in private, it's all hollow. The world might believe your act, but you'll always know the truth. And that truth will eat at you until you either face it or fall to it. Growth requires brutal honesty because that's what turns weakness into wisdom. Every painful truth you face becomes a lesson. Every flaw you expose becomes an opportunity to build strength. Every failure you take ownership of becomes the foundation for your next success. You can't lose when you're honest because honesty keeps you learning. It keeps you improving. It keeps you hungry. So look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. Not the version that sounds good, but the version that stings. Admit what you've been avoiding. Admit what you need to change. Admit where you've been lazy, inconsistent, or afraid. Then make a decision not to talk about change, but to become change. That's where real growth starts. The moment you stop lying to yourself, you start rebuilding your life from the ground up. Brutal honesty is not the enemy. It's the doorway to every level of greatness you've been praying for. Because the truth will hurt you, but denial will destroy you. Choose the hurt that heals. Choose honesty and watch how fast you grow. 4, the mirror doesn't lie. That's the cold truth that every real leader has to face. You can hide from people, you can fake your confidence, you can post your highlights, but when you stand in front of that mirror, there are no filters, no applause, no distractions. It's just you and the reality of your effort, your habits, your discipline, and your decision. The mirror shows exactly what you've built and what you've avoided. It doesn't show what you wish you were. It shows what you truly are. That's why most people don't like looking at it for too long, because it reflects truth, not comfort. But for those who are serious about growth, the mirror becomes their best friend, their accountability partner, and their most honest mentor. Every time you look in the mirror, you're confronted with one simple question: am I doing enough? And deep down, you already know the answer. You know when you've given your best, and you know when you've been slacking. You can lie to everyone else, but you can't lie to yourself. The mirror exposes your truth without saying a word. It shows the cost of your habits. The late nights you wasted, the early mornings you avoided, the shortcuts you took when no one was watching. It reflects the discipline you've either mastered or neglected. And that's what separates real leaders from talkers. Real leaders don't fear that reflection. They study it. They use it as a report card, not as a source of shame. The mirror reveals the truth about effort. You talk about your dreams all day, but the reflection shows whether your work ethic matches your words. You stop needing validation. You start moving from power, not from pressure. Real leadership is built in those quiet moments, before the world wakes up, when it's just you in the mirror. That's where you make the decisions that shape your destiny. That's where you choose to grind, to learn, to grow, to stay consistent. The world will always try to distract you, to drain you, to convince you to slow down. But the mirror doesn't lie. It will always reflect your truth. And if you're honest enough to face it, to challenge it, to rise from it, you'll never have to depend on anyone else to keep you going again. So stop waiting to be inspired. Stop waiting for the world to light your fire. Look in the mirror and understand that everything you need is already inside you. The reflection you see is not your limit. It's your responsibility. Create your own energy. Generate your own motivation. Command your own greatness. Because real leaders don't wait for motivation. They become it. 6, most people live their entire lives pointing fingers at everything and everyone around them. They blame their circumstances, their upbringing, their boss, their luck, even the weather for where they are in life. They look outward for excuses because it's easier than looking inward for responsibility. But real leaders, the ones who rise above the noise, they do the opposite. They carry the full weight of their lives on their shoulders and say, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. They don't run from accountability. They embrace it. They don't waste energy complaining about how unfair life is. They use that energy to get better, sharper, tougher. Responsibility is the language of leadership. Excuses are the language of mediocrity. And when you look in the mirror, you're looking at the only person who can truly change your situation. The world will never hand you success. It doesn't care about your excuses. You can't control the way people treat you. You can't control the breaks you didn't get, but you can control how you respond. And that's what separates the average from the exceptional. Real leaders understand that blaming others is like giving away your power. Every time you make an excuse, you're basically saying, I'm not in control. But when you take responsibility, even for things that weren't your fault, you're saying, I still hold the pen. I still decide what happens next. That's where true strength begins. Excuses feel comfortable because they protect your ego. They make failure easier to digest. You can tell yourself it's not my fault. The timing wasn't right. I didn't have the resources. But that comfort is poison. It keeps you trapped in the same cycle year after year. The truth is, the moment you stop defending your limitations, you start discovering your potential. Real leaders would rather face the brutal truth than live in a beautiful lie. They don't sugarcoat their failures. They dissect them. They don't avoid responsibility because they understand that the person who accepts responsibility also accepts power, the power to change, to grow, to rebuild. Every time life knocks you down, you have two choices. Blame the world or build yourself. Excuses build walls. Responsibility builds doors. You can either lock yourself behind the story of why it didn't work out, or you can walk through the pain, the lessons, the setbacks, and use them as fuel. Real leaders don't get trapped in self-pity. They look at the mess, the mistakes, the missed opportunities, and say, I did this. Now I'm going to fix it. That's ownership. That's leadership. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're unshakable. It means that no matter what happens, you refuse to let life dictate your mindset. You could be broke, heartbroken, exhausted. But if you still say, this is on me and I will handle it, you've already won. Because now you're no longer a victim, you're a creator. Leaders don't play the victim game. And that's what real leaders understand. Self-mastery is indestructible. Every decision you make in private echoes in public. You can't fake discipline, you can't fake character, and you can't fake leadership. The mirror exposes everything. That's why so many people avoid it. They're afraid to face their own truth. But real leaders crave it. They want to see their weaknesses because they're hungry to turn them into strengths. They don't run from their reflection. They study it, they refine it, they rebuild it. That's what makes them unstoppable. Because a person who has mastered themselves can adapt to anything, failure, betrayal, chaos, and still stand tall. There's a deep kind of peace that comes from self-mastery. When you've spent years holding yourself accountable, you stop needing to control others. You stop competing, comparing, or proving anything to anyone. You become grounded. You start leading from clarity, not ego. People can feel that. They trust you because they know you fought the battles they're still fighting, and you've won. You're not speaking theory. You're speaking from experience, and that's what builds legacy. Legacy isn't built by shouting louder than others. It's built by becoming the example others want to follow. Think about the greatest leaders in history. They weren't perfect, but they were disciplined. They were anchored in their values, grounded in their purpose, and relentless in their pursuit of growth. They didn't lead from chaos. They led from clarity. And that clarity came from years of looking in the mirror, asking the hard questions. Am I walking my talk? Am I growing or just pretending? Am I being honest with myself? These are the questions that build legacies, not speeches or titles. The mirror is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It doesn't judge, it reflects. It shows you exactly where you stand. And if you're brave enough to keep facing it day after day, it will transform you into the kind of person others naturally follow. That's the secret of real leadership. People follow strength, and true strength comes from self-control. You can't inspire others if you can't inspire yourself. You can't expect loyalty if you haven't built it within yourself first. You can't demand excellence if you don't practice it in private. Everything starts and ends with you. When you begin to lead yourself, truly lead yourself, your energy changes. You stop forcing people to follow you because your example pulls them in. You stop talking about change and start embodying it. That's when your influence becomes real. That's when you stop chasing legacy and start living it. Because legacy isn't a moment, it's a lifestyle. It's a daily decision to hold yourself to a higher standard, even when no one is watching. It's the courage to face your flaws, the humility to grow, and the discipline to keep going no matter what. So every morning, look in that mirror and remind yourself this is where leaders are made. Not in the noise, not in the spotlight, but here, in this quiet space where accountability meets discipline. Don't look for perfection. Look for progress. Don't chase motivation, chase mastery. Because when you master yourself, the world has no choice but to follow your example. Legacy isn't something you build someday, it's something you build today in the way you think, act, and carry yourself. Remember this, you can't lead anyone until you've learned to lead the person in the mirror. That reflection holds your potential, your power, your purpose. It's not about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself. That's where real leadership begins. That's where real legacy is born. And when you reach that level of self-mastery, you'll realize something powerful. The world doesn't shape your destiny, you do. The mirror was never your enemy, it was always your key. Listen to me. Every single great leader, every single person who's ever changed the world, started by doing one simple but terrifying thing. They looked in the mirror and told themselves the truth. Not the comfortable truth, not the polished, edited version they show the world, unfiltered, I have work to do kind of truth. Because the mirror doesn't lie. It doesn't care about your potential, your dreams, or your excuses. It reflects who you are right now. And until you have the courage to face that reflection, you'll keep living below your own greatness. That's what separates real leaders from everyone else. Most people spend their lives running from their reflection. They distract themselves, blame the world, or bury their pain under noise. But real leaders, they stand still. They face the reflection that scares them. They stare into the eyes of their own weakness, their own fear, their own regret. And they say, I'm not hiding anymore. That's where transformation begins. Because when you stop running from yourself, you unlock the power to change yourself. You want to know what real leadership looks like. It's not about followers. It's not about fame. It's not about being liked. It's about looking in the mirror every morning and holding yourself accountable to your potential. It's about doing what you said you would do, even when it hurts, even when no one's watching. It's about refusing to point finger and instead saying, if I want it, I'll go get it. If I fail, I'll learn. If I fall, I'll rise. That's the kind of mindset that builds legacy, the kind that can't be broken by rejection, by loss, or by failure. Every single day, the mirror gives you choices: excuses or execution, reflection or denial, growth or comfort. One choice leads to mediocrity, the other to greatness. The real question is, which version of yourself are you feeding? Because the reflection you see right now doesn't define you, but it does expose you. It shows you exactly where you are, so you can decide where you're going next. So the next time you look in that mirror, don't see your flaws. See your fight. Don't see your past. See your potential. Don't see someone tired and defeated. See someone who's still standing, still breathing, still in the game. Because as long as that reflection looks back at you, it means you still got time to rewrite your story. You are the leader you've been waiting for. You are the power you've been searching for. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. The moment is now, and the proof is in the reflection staring right at you. Step up, face yourself, build yourself. Because real leaders don't look out the window to find inspiration. They look in the mirror and create it. This is your time, this is your mirror, and it's waiting for you to become everything you were born to be.